Super Rugby AU round number 8. Saturday game is the Chiefs and the Crusaders. I kind of want to say both these teams are at different points in their momentum. Like the Chiefs started off the season looking like their winless run was going to go on forever. But they're on a winning streak at the moment. They've beaten the Blues, they've beaten the Highlanders in the Golden Point time. Whereas the Crusaders looked all-conquering early. And don't get me wrong, they're still by far the top New Zealand team as their win record shows. The next best is the Chiefs and the Blues with 3-2. These guys are 5-1. You don't get that way by accident. But they've lost to the Highlanders and then struggled to beat the bottom side, which is the Hurricanes. Now, that could mean that Super Rugby Aotearoa is really close competition. Or maybe that the Crusaders are just a little bit foot off the gas. I don't know. We'll have to have a look and see. This weekend, the Chiefs hot on form, seemingly. And the Crusaders, especially their handling errors, have been way higher than we would associate normally with the Crusaders. So, which bit of momentum carries through will be a fun one to see. They did meet in round 3. It was 39 points to 17 to the Crusaders. Way too good at home. But this time we are in Chiefs country and we'll see how things go. The Chiefs front row is Ross, Taukei'aho and Ta'avao. Ta'avao's been having a bit of a spike in form as well, which seems to go hand in hand with how the Chiefs have been playing. Vaa'i and Kuoi are two very, very impressive young solid locks. I think maybe they need a bit more effort at line-out time, I suppose, because the Chiefs line-out has been an area of concern. That's just, we'll get to those stats in a wee while. Mitch Brown, Lachlan, Boshier and Luke Jacobson are the back row. Boshier is back. It was Kaylum last week, but his brother is on the bench this time. So Lachlan we haven't seen for ages. And he was in dynamite form last year, man. He was getting turnovers. He was making tons of tackles. Wasn't the hugest guy in terms of his carrying, but still good enough, man. And he couldn't even get to like an All Blacks kind of training squad. It was bizarre. So, good test for him and a good one with Sam Cane being absent to really step up, even though we're kind of at the tail end of the competition now anyway. Brad Webber's been in, of all the halfbacks, I know he starts and some of the other sides like the Crusaders like to rotate, but in terms of ball and hand stuff, Webber is a proper nuisance in terms of his little attacking runs that he makes. He bamboozles the defence more than he probably should be able to, seeing as you should know what you're getting from Webber. He's an attacking halfback. Nankivell and ALB is the midfield. ALB was huge last week with his turnovers. I forgot to mention D-Mac. D-Mac's at 10. They've moved him from 15 to 10. Huge challenge for him going up against Richie Mo'unga. I know that's not quite like an All Blacks direct matchup. It'd be more interestingly Bowden Barrett up against Richie. But D-Mac is seen kind of as that utility guy who can cover fullback, who can cover first five. So, yeah, man, really tough one for him to shift. But he shifts into 10 virtually every game anyway, so it's not a huge deal. There's no Trask, but yeah, up against the Crusaders, he'll have to be rearing and fit to go from the time the whistle goes. Nanai-Seturo and Jonah Lowe are the wingers. Tiatia is at fullback. Tuhuriarangi's on the bench. Gatlin's on the bench. Wainui's on the bench, as I mentioned. Kaylum Boshier. Sowakula looks to be covering lock on the bench. So, yeah, the line-out is the one area of concern. But anyway, helpfully for the Chiefs, the Crusaders have had a real shift in their side. They're resting a few guys. They're resting Sam Whitelock. They're resting Cullen Grace. Joe Moody's got injured. Jack Goodhue's got injured. So maybe this is the time to pounce on the Crusaders. You know, Braden Enor's not back from injury yet. I'm not saying the Chiefs are without injuries, but yeah, maybe it's the time. So Bauer, McAllister, and Alaalatoa is the front row. Totally different from last week. Moody started. Bauer came on. McAllister didn't even get off the bench. Cody Taylor played the whole game plus Golden Point, and Alaalatoa was on the bench. He's leaving at the end of the season to go to Leinster. He can pick champions teams, that guy. Dunshay and Strange are an all-new lock-in duo. Dunshay came off the bench, had a good impact last week with that charge down. Strange, I think he got injured at the start of the season, right? So good chance for him to get a run with Whitelock being arrested. And Scott Barrett shifts to 6. We haven't seen him play there for a bloody long time. Remember, the All Blacks experimented with him at 6 as well. Sanders is at 7 and Blackadder's back from injury. a minor one, to be at 8. Drummond, I think he's getting his 100th cap for the Crusaders, so congratulations to him. He's at 9, so Hall drops to the bench. Mo'unga's still there at 10. As I mentioned against DMAC, he's going to want to really show things up just to reassert that he is by far the best first 5 we've got in the country. David Havili on the back of that drop goal last week's at 12. Defensive numbers weren't great last week. Missed about 5 tackles, which is uncharacteristic. Fainga'anuku gets a crack at 13, a proper start. Like he virtually got on, really early last week. In the midfield, I think Scott Robertson mentioned he's kind of like a Tana Umanga style player that he can shift from wing into midfield. So that's seemingly where they see his future going. Bridge, Reese, and Jordan is the back 3. Pretty useful. Taylor's on the bench, like I mentioned. Hall, Ollie Jaeger. Mataele's back in the squad. Romano gets a crack. Isi Tuangafasi is there on the bench. So, bit of a shift up for the Crusaders. Key guys for each side. For the Crusaders, obviously you got Mo'unga, who's just going to run the show, but I think the one to watch this week is going to be Lester Fainga'anuku, man, to see how he goes in the midfield. If you look at his numbers, man, I know he's playing on wing. Can he replicate this in the midfield? He's second in Super Rugby Aotearoa for clean breaks. He's the top Crusader. He's second for carries. He's the top Crusader. He's the second for defenders beaten. He's the second Crusader because Mo'unga is number 1. He's the first guy for run meters. The guy has been absolutely tearing it up. And it's a good one in terms of All Black selection to get yourself maybe even ahead of Rico Ioane as that kind of winger come centre. Defensively, he'll have to be on fire. Brown for the Chiefs. I know D-Mac at 10. Again, it's easy to look at the 2 10s, but I think he'll need to have a big game and helpfully supporting his locks because he's the number 1 chief for line-out takes, believe it or not. So they'll need him to do a job. And he's the top chief for tackles. He's still behind Sam Cane, but Sam Cane's done for the season. So you would think that if you're going to win against the Crusaders, your lineout's going to need to be better than it has been. And he's going to have to be defensively really on form because he is the top chief tackler, like I mentioned. Head-to-head stats. The Crusaders have scored more tries, obviously, but remember, they've played 6 games, the Chiefs 5. The Crusaders average almost 4 tries a game, 3.8. The Chiefs are at 2.6, so a fair bit lower. Clean breaks, the Crusaders edge it, but these 2 sides are the 1 and 2 sides for average number of clean breaks per game. The Crusaders 10.6, Chiefs 9.4. So in theory, you should see an exciting game with heaps of open play. That being said, these are the top 2 sides for their tackling percentage as well, so which is going to win out, the attack or the defense? It remains to be seen. The Crusaders are first, the Chiefs are second for that. The line-out, as I mentioned, the Crusaders operate at 93.2%, first in the competition. Or was it 95%? Can't read my own handwriting. It looks like a 5. Bloody high. The Chiefs are at 80%, so 1 in 5 is going astray for the Chiefs, which is not doable. And against the Crusaders, man, I mean, I know they've changed their lock, so maybe that's a good chance, but you've got essentially a third lock playing in Scott Barrett in the blind side. So if they surrender easy line-out ball, they will be in a world of trouble. The Crusaders offload a lot more. Interestingly, the Chiefs have gone from that crazy offloading team to being the bottom team for average offloads per game in Super Rugby Aotearoa. Remember the days back when Dave Rennie was coaching them and they would just offload for fun? Goal kicking, the Chiefs have got a lower rate. Penalties conceded, the Chiefs are pretty similar to the Crusaders. They concede 1 less penalty. They've also conceded 1 less yellow card during the whole competition. But I don't know, man. Is all of that relevant, or is it just that the Chiefs seem to be in good form and the Crusaders need to hang on to the pill without knocking it on? All these changes, don't know. The bookies have got the Crusaders by 5. The Rugby Forecast algorithm has got the Crusaders by 4. So either way, the Crusaders go into this one as big-time favourites. They've made some changes. These guys are in form. I don't know. What do you guys reckon? Chiefs to come out on top at home, or the Crusaders to just keep crusading on? Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you again soon. See you later.